the past, we always looked for quality programs and quality organizations, and it was a community-based process of making those decisions. We've raised the bar a little bit, and we will continue to raise the bar a little bit in terms of identifying the best programs who require United Way funding very specifically, with a sense of where can we make the most impact in meeting community needs. Some of the things that we've been looking at are how do we convene groups to have the conversations about identifying need and identifying solutions, and working together, again, to identify where there might be overlap or where there might be some gaps in service, and how to effectively fill those gaps or eliminate the duplication of services, because there's just not enough resources to go around to do things in a redundant fashion.
Especially in this time when money is tight, we've got to be as efficient as possible. We've got to be sure that we're using the appropriate sources of money in the most effective way. And it's really helpful for us at Hope to be able to get together with other people to talk about the families that are coming back again and again, that are having difficulties. We often get some information that we didn't have before. We can lend information to others that they didn't have. And so we're able to provide a much more comprehensive type of response to people who are struggling.
So one of the important things that the United Way is doing right now in Addison County is facilitating a group of service providers to look at trying to identify if there are any unmet needs in the county. Looking at, for the senior population in the senior care network, if there are services that aren't being provided, or if there are services that are going to need to be provided in the future that we should be looking at right now. So the United Way has been facilitating this process with service providers across the county, that United Way can step back and not be presenting any kind of a bias at the table. United Way is just there to see what the needs are and how are we meeting those needs.
And one of the things that I think United Way has been able to do is to bring an overall look at how are we serving the total community, how are we interacting, how are we working together to provide the best possible services. This has been a real helpful component that I've seen. They're able to bring this kind of 10,000-foot view that some of us who are in the trenches more of the time haven't been able to do. It's become very clear the last 2 years, and we're projecting into the future, that the economic recovery, the decline first, and the economic recovery is going to be slow. As a result of this economic environment, the state of Vermont certainly is and state agencies have seen a couple of things, a couple of impacts. We've seen a reduction in the number of staff, and we've also seen an increase in our caseloads. We have to think creatively, we have to think in ways that we haven't thought of in the past, and having as many partners at the table to think about how we can deliver those services in the best possible way is critical. And again, the United Way has been one of those willing partners, and with them they bring resources and perspectives that we haven't had at the table before.
United Way became very clear several years ago that we don't have enough funding to meet all the needs, and so wherever we invest our dollars, it has to be pretty profoundly meaningful. It has to have some kind of impact that can be measured.
I was really excited when we started talking about putting together a peer group to talk about measurements, because I feel like we've been looking more at that in the proposals that we're requesting, to learn sort of how organizations are seeing themselves effectively, particularly since we've started offering general operating support. It's really important for us to see how organizations are saying that they're being impactful.
So Outcome Measurements Group has been a great experience. I think it's something that all agencies are looking at, not just because of United Way's requirements, but so many funders are looking at outcomes, and it's so valuable for us to think about the impact we're having on in our case, the youth and the community that we serve. And to be able to talk about that openly with a group of people that are all dealing with the same limitations, the same resources that we are, it's a great opportunity to hopefully come to some solutions as we work through the process and figure out some ways that we can measure the impacts that we're having.
Everybody's trying to help kids, But to measure that can be difficult. A lot of times it's long-term to be able to see the effect. It's to help not only the organizations evaluate and learn to measure their outcomes, but it's also to help the funders understand what may be important and what's useful.
When we are asking agencies to improve their ability to talk about outcomes and measure indicators and that sort of thing, we provide training on that and bring in experts who can help to help bring up the level of capacity in each of the organizations we work with.
United Way has done a lot for hospice volunteer services and many other agencies besides funding. I loved the board development training that included financial matters, legal matters, communication, Robert's Rules of Order, conflict management, board role and duties. That was really helpful to me.
We decided it would be very helpful to have an outside professional perspective. We decided it would be helpful if we could collaborate with the United Way to come in and give us some help in the area of looking at our financial health and our financial documents, etc. And the board was all for it and really welcomed, I think, the opportunity to have someone from the outside come in and help us look at a very specific way we've been representing ourselves and a very specific tool that we've been trying to use.
In the spring this year, we applied for a United Way grant. In the part of that process, the feedback to us was that we needed to create a strategic plan, which we are in the process of creating. We got a lot of guidance in how to structure the organization, and since then we've gotten guidance in the kinds of things we need to do to keep the organization going, particularly for getting grants, in terms of the measurements that we need to start doing and that how we need to ask and what we need to do to be an ongoing grant receiver.
One of the really strong areas of outcomes that we're looking at are what happens with our volunteers. So we have 45 volunteers who go out and visit with agencies who have applied for funding. They read through the applications, they learn about outcomes measurement, they learn about community need, they learn about some of the programs and collaborations that are addressing those needs, and they become very actively involved and very knowledgeable about our community very quickly. And it's really wonderful to watch them as they come to their aha moments about, oh, that's a community need, and look at all these wonderful programs that help address those needs.
I am extremely thankful to the allocations team that came here to visit this past year especially. Not just in their support and understanding of what we're trying to do, but also to offer suggestions. Taking their input, I was able to move forward and in a good direction and have a clear head about it.
Volunteers are a really crucial part of the delivery of human services in Addison County. None of us have enough staff to accomplish everything that needs to be done. And if we didn't have volunteers, I think a lot more people would be hungry, a lot less people would be housed, a lot less people would have warm clothing. This is a really wonderful place to be in regard to volunteers. There is such a strong volunteer spirit here. And we really appreciate the United Way's Volunteer Connection and the work with RSVP and the various different civic organizations here. Everybody really comes together to look at what are the needs and how can people get out there and help.
Last year, I remember when we participated in Days of Caring that United Way had a record number of volunteers involved from schools and organizations and businesses. And I thought that in itself created a lot of energy and it was contagious.
Giving and volunteering with the United Way, it's about civic engagement. It's about social capital. It's about, to me, I grew up in Vermont and I've stayed here, and one of the reasons I've stayed in Vermont is because it's what I call a participatory culture. In other places where there are a lot more people, you stand back and you wait for somebody else to do it. You don't do that in Vermont. You jump in.
There are so many organizations in Addison County that touch our lives. And United Way does such a wonderful job of reaching out to those organizations and building connections that it's a really effective way to use your dollars.
We all need direction and we all need opportunities. And United Way is helping provide those opportunities.
They're playing an active role in building community. I think that that's what the United Way does. It connects people.
So part of what makes United Way unique is that we really do look at the community from a broad standpoint. We're not limited to one demographic group. We're not limited to one community issue. That we really look at how do they intersect and how do all people's needs fit into the system of need, the system of care, the system of how to get involved and help one another. And so that puts us in a pretty unique position for a lot of things. It puts us in a great place to take care of some of the funding needs, some of the directing volunteers, and it's clearly positioning us for some kind of advocacy role as we really look at how can we be a good voice for the whole system.
United Way works to advance the common good, focusing on giving people in our community the building blocks for a better life. United Way looks at the symptoms of problems and, with its community partners, goes deeper to understand and address the underlying causes. We work to create lasting change in community conditions. We measure results and the impact we make in changing lives and shaping communities. United Way rallies volunteers, raises funds, advocates for change, and invites people and organizations to work together. Your donation is used wisely in a network of high-performing programs and agencies that provide essential human services. Every gift matters. More than 2,000 gifts from individuals, gifts of all sizes, help United Way reach its fundraising goal. Please help make an impact in our community by giving to United Way. Please live united, give, advocate, and volunteer.